The question is, can you look yourself in the mirror at the end of the night and say, actually, look, I did really well today, but I didn't harm anyone. I know right from wrong. Actually, I did the right thing by business, my customers, my staff, myself. Realistically, this started about 25 years ago, if not even 30 years ago. At university, when I was there wasn't really computers, and the computers that were there were not exactly great. I remember typing and typing and typing and not having a clue about how to do saving. So you can imagine trying to write essays on one of the first computers that came into Manchester University wasn't the most fun thing in the world. But it sort of sparked an interest because you were looking at something there that really was the future at the time. And it wasn't until a couple of years later till I went and taught English abroad when I started to see customer records. And then you started thinking, oh my goodness, hold on, these should be going into databases because we should be making far more use of our customer data to allow us to actually make better decisions and work. And then I remembered computers, and then I put computers and databases together and went and did a master's in Queen's Universities in Belfast. Not oddly enough, as you can imagine, my dissertation was on databases and coding and something else. I was doing a tech master's and then got into computer coding and then got into automation. And then a couple of years later, it was now actually we've got the insight and we've got the computing technology and the automation that we need. But what about the foresight? And I was fortunate to come across a company in England who were doing a lot of predictive analytics. And then you could start to see, oh my goodness, if we know what's happening and why it's happening and what might happen and actually what can we do about it to get the results that we want, then as businesses we can turn something extraordinary into place. And I did all that and ended up over the years being a CTO, a CIO, a head of process excellence, a chief AI officer, and I've just been in that space ever since. So now I want great automation, great technology, great insight, and great foresight. And once you put those things together with financial literacy or some form of business acumen, and you keep your eye on the end goal, particularly focusing on what the customers want, then you can have a much better decision than any other business. And so far, it's worked out all right because any of the businesses I work with, when they do all of those things, become really fun places to work where there's a lot of high performing teams able to use technology rather than the robot being in them. We take the robot out and just make things very profitable, very efficient, and a lot of fun. Yeah, there's so many misconceptions now because it's reached what I would describe as, inflated point of hype. The biggest one is that AI can do everything. And interestingly, I'm just off a consulting call a second ago because I tend to teach, I tend to talk, I tend to consult, big and small. And I think that's a lot more effective once you can set strategy that works in the real world when rubber hits road. And then when you're able to actually implement it, you just come up with a much more effective person or role or function. But it can't do everything. It's a tool in your toolkit. It's an amazing tool. And if you use that tool in the right lock, for want of a better phrase, then the world opens up, to more efficiency, more creativity, more innovativeness, more productivity, higher sales, higher ROI, reduced operating cost, and. The multiplier effect of using this technology is immense. But if you use it in the wrong circumstances, the cost effect is multiplied over and over again. And rather than doing, as I discovered recently while I was chairing a conference for some of the biggest CTOs and CIOs in the world, one had 223 what they confidently described as proof of concepts, what I confidently re-described as proofs of cost, because there was nothing of any business benefit that was going to come out. So as long as you know what you're doing, AI is a great tool amongst, other great tools. It's a brilliant one, I should say. And if you put a great tool with a great person, you can normally get a better result as long as you point everyone in the right business outcome-based direction. Yeah, the ultimate thing is actually an end goal that turns into pounds, pennies, pence, or dollars, or yen, or whatever else it is. Look, all these things, we're in business to make money. In the main, I accept third-party companies, charities and whatever else to be more efficient, make better use of money and everything else, but we're looking some form of economic return or output. So those businesses that put AI to the right use, they will win. Those leaders who act as I described, lighthouse leaders, in other words, they lead the way. They're a shining light as to what works and what doesn't work. AI tied to strategy to help build or better deliver business strategy, more profitably, more economically, more operationally focused. Those businesses that focus on their people and innovation, and in this day and age, agility, but always maintaining the focus on ROI. Those who build, a great AI strategy or tech strategy with a brilliant people strategy, with a great change management strategy, all focused on delivering, a really good business strategy, will tend to win. But ultimately, remember, it's not about getting distracted by the tooling or the policies or the capability of the data or anything else. It's those that focus maniacally on their customers and what they want, and delivering that in an agile, least friction way, something that excites and delights the customer where needed. When I say where needed, because let's be honest, if I'm buying insurance, very often people consider it a distress purchase, whereas I'm selling a piece of art, that's a different experience altogether. But I want to keep my customers maniacally happy. I want to make sure that my staff are brought on board, have the tools that they need, have the vision and strategy that they want to follow, and are absolutely bought into it. And when I've got my customer and my business, my staff, my leadership team, and everyone all focused in the right direction, doing what everybody should consider valuable, meaningful work, then I can get the business ROI or the outcomes that I want. And you'd be amazed, that's not the most numerous amount of ingredients, but you would be surprised at how many people ignore their customers. They get focused internally. How many people, run their staff, for want of a better phrase, into the ground, and then introduce more change that they don't explain. You'd be amazed at how many customers or companies get lost in all of the tech and all of the things that are happening in the world and forget the basics. In other words, we need to make more money than we spend in the long term to make sure we actually survive. So if you can get the simple things right, and those are reasonably simple, now they're complex to do and to install and to get working, to get all the moving parts together. But if you do all those things, customer, staff, and business ROI, then you haven't gone too far wrong at all. You can actually do a pretty good job. For so many reasons. Look, we're going to get judged every day by our staff, our customers, and most importantly by ourselves to say, look, whether what we're doing is actually, right or wrong. And let's be honest, we do know what, I hope to God, we do know what is right and we do know what is wrong. But AI now, look, there's so many things that I can see that by analyzing great big data sets. So let me give you an example. So numbers of years ago, I was working in insurance brokerage. We could tell with a 95% certainty whether someone would come or go based on their price elasticity, which is a nice fancy name for saying, actually, if we up or down your price by a certain percentage, will you react or not? And we could tell, everyone out of 180,000 clients, what they would do based on £5 rise, £20 rise, £40 rise, £150 rise. And when you combine AI insight like that with other insight, for example, neuro-linguistic programming or behavioral science, all AI, all pattern-based, all data-based, then you probably know more about people than they do about themselves. And then you have the responsibility and the accountability to determine what you do with that. So if I were to look at staff data, without telling them, I could pretty much work out who's saying what to who's connected to who's going to go or not. But where's the actual privacy in that? I could manipulate customers should I wish, using NLP data and all those types of things. We could make decisions using AI that, might involve biased data. Like the things that can go wrong, the things that you could do, all are possible. And there are some naughty examples. So one, I'd say, without naming them too much, is in a recent book by their global PR person, was able to describe how AI could identify very quickly, young girls who put pictures up onto a particular social platform. They then take them down because research has proven they're not confident about themselves or their looks. And the next minute, AI is collecting all that data, packaging it up and selling it off to makeup advertisers. And you're sort of going, look, yes, from a business perspective, isn't that wonderful? You can, gain huge competitive advantage and sell a lot of product and advertising. But really, from a moral perspective, if it was your niece, your daughter, your sister, your aunt, your mother, whatever else, would you do it? So I think ultimately we have tremendous power in our hands, to get great insight, to get great foresight, to combine databases and things together that, can define us more than anything. We can then combine that with, as I said, NLP, behavioral science, again, data-based. The question is, can you look yourself in the mirror at the end of the night and say, actually, look, I did really well today, but I didn't harm anyone. I know right from wrong. Actually, I did the right thing by business, my customers, my staff, myself. And if I can do that, then fantastic. Not all of us can do that, I'm sure. And not all businesses are as reputable as we have seen over the last numbers of years. And that's why there's rules in place, body rules, association rules, local country rules, European legal systems. So if you don't judge yourself, someone else quite rightly will. So let's see. I hope we do the right thing, because AI can allow us to achieve so much more than put our best brains on the planet to work out thumbs up and thumbs down emojis. Let's hope we actually apply this great science to solving, some of society's greatest problems, as opposed to targeting young girls with extra makeup if they're not quite feeling at their best today. My one is I come and put a really practical lens on the things that we're actually doing. So we can all talk theory and businesses can come away going, oh my goodness, that was interesting, or people can say the same thing, and hopefully to God they're inspired by it. But I want real strategies, real outcomes, things that inspire, things that I can take action on immediately. And because I talk, I research, and I practice, and I live in the real world, not only will you get a high energy talk, and not only will you get insights into what's happened, why it's happened, and what's likely to happen, and you can use that information to actually, guide your business a little bit more, but you'll come away with real actionable strategies that you can turn into really good business outcomes, all from standing, sitting, or whatever it is you want to do, dialing in to any one of my talks. And everyone who tends to go away with that finds those same things. High energy, excitement, realism, practical. I can see into the future so they can make a little bit of a better decision here based on all the trends that are happening, but I can take what I've learned and do something with it.